welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're bringing it back to our weekly Dr. Dolittle Preparation Marathon with Dr. Dolittle 2, currently available to stream on Disney+. If you tuned in last week, you know that my main thing about that first film was that narratively and technically speaking, it sometimes lacked, but the comedy worked really well for me. And when comedy works out well, an audience is more likely to forgive any technical faults the film may have. So, I was really looking forward to seeing this film, but is it able to wangle in some excitement from me, or is it bound to the sequel curse? After all, there was never really a third Dolittle film with Eddie Murphy. Just saying, so let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, wangle. Manage to obtain something by persuading or cleverly manipulating someone. It's time to save the trees in Dr. Dolittle 2 when a herd of wild animals approach the good doctor with a dire request to stop an environmental threat posed to them when their forest is being torn down. Dr. Dolittle plans to save the forest by putting a circus bear into the wild, have it fall in love with another wild bear, have wild bear babies, which would in turn help preserve the wilderness and stop the destruction, but the rich have plans to stop Dr. Dolittle from succeeding. The question comes down to, which will win? Alright, so I think structurally speaking, this film is the opposite of the first. From a narrative vantage point, it's much more concrete in what it's trying to do. There's a story goal from beginning to end with obstacles and an antagonist who is written to be diametrically opposed to the protagonist's goal. While the first didn't really have any real direction it was heading, this one did, which is this film's greatest strength. The problem with that, however, is that its greatest strength is also its greatest weakness, because the first film may not have had the greatest narrative in the world, but the lack of focus on the narrative helped them focus more on just funny moments, on just the comedy itself. And as I've said before, the level of humor in that first film was indeed solid, and it helped people forgive the lack of real storytelling. Dr. Dolittle 2, however, had solid storytelling, but comedy that lacked. And you can't just forgive lacking comedy like you can forgive lacking storytelling, because the reason that you watch a comedy is for the comedy. Maybe it's the fact that this film is geared more towards family comedy than the first that diluted the humor, and maybe it's something else entirely, but I just didn't find it so funny. Norm Macdonald returns as the dog Lucky, but he was barely in it, and when he was, he just didn't make me laugh like he made me laugh in the first movie. Now, personally, I think the biggest problem with this film had a bit more to do with social commentary. This is a very environmentally friendly film, which, don't get me wrong, I'm all for tree hugging and having green thumbs, saving whales, all that crap, but it's not the greatest theme for a comedy, because that commentary starts to be on the nose and in your face, which is just another thing that dilutes comedy the film could have potentially had. The first film was very good with satirical humor that either you got or you didn't, but it didn't rely too much on that, so you could enjoy it regardless. This film had only a few moments of satirical humor, maybe some suggestive content, but a majority of everything that happens in this film was very family friendly, which is in sharp contrast to that first film. And that's probably why this is on Disney Plus and the first one isn't. Personally, when you're a franchise, I think you should just stick to your guns. Stop censoring yourself, especially if you started the franchise in a different light entirely, because then it almost seems like you're a parody skit of yourself on something like a family-friendly SNL, where you can tell that this is supposed to be Dr. Dolittle, but at the same time, it's not the same thing. There might be a few silly poop and fart jokes in there, and trust me, they're there, but it's not enough fuel to power a good comedy. As glad as I am that this film actually has a plot, and a plot that actually makes sense, the plot and the insistence on being a more family-friendly endeavor unfortunately diluted the sense of humor the first was so good at proclaiming. So I've said all that I can say. Let's go ahead and score this puppy. According to my rating score sheet, I believe that this film deserves an unbiased score of 76% because it had such a nice structured story. But my underwhelming experience with the bland comedy turned my bias score to 62%. Meaning when you average the two together, my final score that I'm giving Dr. Dolittle 2 is 69%, granting it the letter grade of D, narrowly missing a low C score. It was almost there. There are things that I honestly like about this movie, but the main reason that I watch something like this is for the comedy, and the comedy just wasn't as strong. That's more of a bias, but with comedies, when is it not? Guys, I'd like to hear your thoughts on Dr. Dolittle 2. Is this more family-friendly film better to you? Or do you prefer the first one with Eddie Murphy? Or heck, do you prefer the one with Robert Downey Jr.? Let me know. As for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review and would like to see some others like it. Hit the thumbs up button because that always helps out my channel. And don't forget about the little bell icon because that'll help notify you when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!